Call the regular meeting of the Cedar Springs City Council to order on Thursday, January 12th. If you would all rise, please, and recite the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. If you have your cell phones, would you please put them on mute? The roll call. Mr. Clark. Here. Mrs. Conley.
Yeah.
Mr.
Here.
Rose. Here. Mr. Hall's here. Mr. Hopkins. Gone. Yes, sir. Mrs. Nixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Powell.
Here.
All here. President Kenshaw. Public comment. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and public hearing portion of the agenda. However, council's policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communication with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concerns will be elevated to the mayor and then eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed to a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record when you approach the bench. At this time, is there anyone wishing to address the council? Mr. Spitzberg.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Dan Spitzbergen. I'm a small business owner here in town, and my address is I live at 1440 13 Mile Road. And over the last few months, I've been watching something that concerns me quite a bit, and I spoke with a person in the offices who told me to bring it to the council, and I've spoken with Perry, he said to bring it to the council, and I've spoken with several other concerned citizens who said to bring it to the council. So here I are. I have been watching my water bills for the last 6 months, and we have seen an incredible increase in water and sewer bills. Now, I have the privilege of paying for water bills at 10 different properties in this town. And my average increase in water and sewer has been 66%. I have had some as low as 30, some as high as 115. And this is per unit of water. So you can't say that I've got leaks. I'm going per unit of water. And I can't get anyone to explain it to me, and I'm getting very frustrated with having to come up with an extra $500 a month with no knowledge of it other than there was a small increase back in May or June. I am very concerned about this. I would like to have someone please explain to me why my water bills went up so much, and if there's anything that we can do about it, if it was a council decision to ramp up increases all at once rather than staging them and stepping them over time or what. This is ridiculous, and it's not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time? Hearing none. At this time, adoption of the agenda. Is there any modifications or changes?
Mr. Mayor, I believe the council indicated its desire to move 8E to a discussion item. I would recommend we change that to 7F.
Do you need a motion of that since we haven't actually adopted the agenda yet?
Well, that's what we're about. We need any changes. You'll be moving 8E up to discussion item, which will be 7E.
7F.
Pardon?
7F. 8E becomes 7F.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay.
Do you want a motion for that, Madam Clerk? Or, okay.
We would have to have a motion to approve the adopt the agenda as
amended.
amended.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to move item 8E as a action item to motion 7F as a discussion item.
Is there a second?
Do we have to say that 8 after we become 8E? What's that?
Did I not say it correctly?
8F will,
We turn it to 8E, meaning that 8E is being moved.
8E will become 7F, correct? Do I
Yes,
have that correct, Madam Clerk?
yes, but there's an
Okay.
F that will be dropped down to E, under 8.
Right.
correct.
With an addition of 7E. No, 8E. 8E.
Okay, it's clear.
The clerk is nodding. We're going to pretend she has it.
Just-
I'm sorry, not to interrupt you. There was a member of the public who wanted to address the council. He has hearing issues and
Okay.
he did not realize they had been closed. Is
Okay.
is it possible that you could address the
Yeah,
council in a moment?
let us approve this agenda, adopt the agenda, and then I'll have him come up. Okay, will that be fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching, I thought maybe you might want it to, but you didn't indicate, so
Yeah, he didn't hear you.
no problem, we'll entertain that. We have a motion on the floor to adopt the agenda, is there any further discussion? Who did we have second that? Mr. Hopkins.
So we have the structure correct and the council's all.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, sign no. Motion carries. At this time, I'll let individuals speak to the council.
Good evening, my name is Frank Bradshaw, and I own Meadow Creek Apartments on 300 Oak Street, see the springs here, and I got the same problem as Mrs. Pittsburgh has. My water bill has increased the last 6 months till about $1,000 more a month, and I have no leaks. We check the contract about 3 times a year. And I do not have any leaks. And I like to have an explanation for that, how that can be.
Sir, the council doesn't address the issues that are presented to it. If you would like to further discuss the matter, I'd suggest you come to the city hall during the work week, and I'd be happy to sit down with you. And the same goes for you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
For bringing that.
And thank you, Mr. Manager, for clarifying.
Okay, moving on, item 6, consent agenda. Any counselor wish to add or remove anything from the consent agenda? We have the approval of the minutes of the December 21st. Checks all in electronic transfers totaling $181,212.30. I'm not going to read through all the check numbers.
Could I just make a comment?
After the motion.
Oh, after, okay, sorry.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, Mrs. Paul.
I noticed on the checklist that there was money paid out to the antique fire truck. So I was glad to see that there was something going on, some motor renovation. So just so the public knows, we're
Mrs.
making
Strickland
some
recommended
progress.
the bill for the motor rebuilt, which is great. Thank you very much.
Bill was submitted and paid for out of that money that we had for fundraisers.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah, we're just, I think she's saying, we're just glad to see progress.
Yeah.
In
Getting
general,
closer.
Well, I told you 6 years ago it was coming.
Great news.
Moving at the speed of government.
Is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call. Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Conley?
Yes.
Mrs. Nixon?
yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Hall votes yes, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to item 7, discussion items. Manager Womack.
So we've been approached by a number of individuals and groups who would like to use City Hall, various parts of City Hall, for their various activities. I've been attempting to be as accommodating as possible, but it does take up staff time, it does take up staff resources. As a matter of fact, I did stay till 6 o'clock one day just so that they could use city council chambers. But I'm not about to start asking my staff to stay late, so it's pretty much all on me. I wanted direction from council whether we wanted to adopt any kind of policies towards the use of City Hall. Primarily whether we should adopt some kind of fee to use city chambers, or leave it up to me to draft a policy and then bring it back to you for more discussion. I'm happy to let people use it during, the hours we're here, and that nobody else is using it. But at some point it's going to become an issue insofar as everybody's going to want to do it, and we're going to start having conflicts, and it just becomes a burden on the time that we're otherwise doing the city's business.
Correct.
And I guess there might also be a delineation between, for-profit type groups and non-profit type groups, and I just want some direction from the council on that.
My thought is we would have you draft up a policy. I think there needs to be during operating hours, and if they so wish to use this facility after hours, there has to be a fee. Because we have staff that has to be here, so it's no more than fair if they want to use the facility. Hopefully after the library is open and completed, that room there will take the load off of here. We've always allowed city folks to use this during general operating hours. I think there needs to draw a line at after hours. I don't know the rest of the folks. Mr. Barton, do you have any comment?
Yeah, and I think we should also, I agree, and I think we should also consider, any, facility temperatures are raised or lowered, after hours.
Yeah, we trimmed the temperature down to 65 at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, a little something extra for that. If
There's
they're using it.
consideration.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yes, Mrs. Smith.
Oh, well, sorry to cut.
Here's my thoughts, is that if they live or do business in the city, just a $10 fee to clean clean the room. Obviously, no food, no controversial groups, because we don't need it. If we're going to have to bring in extra police, it really needs to be somewhere else. Not outside of hours, and any function of the city takes priority, even if it wasn't scheduled in advance.
I will state just ahead of time for the people watching, controversy might be a First Amendment issue.
Yep.
So I will have to do some research into the law on that.
Okay.
I skipped over this on Ms. Powell.
I think there should be just an application process, so it gets on the calendar, so we know that it won't interfere with any city business. And just at least have an application and get on the calendar. Otherwise, I have no reason to object to anybody from the city, like Molly said, from the city or city business to use it.
And just to clarify, we're not talking about any city organizations. Like, we're not talking about planning commission,
No, that wasn't
ZBA.
my intention.
Outside.
Okay, because I just want to make sure, I know planning commission is using the equipment to record, and I know the DBA, I think, is, and I want that to continue to happen.
And obviously, we already use a calendar to do these things.
Right,
but
right.
I didn't know if the council had other ideas for me.
Okay, yeah, then I'm open to whatever. Honestly, I feel like $10 sounds a little low. I might go 15 or 20.
Well, I don't know if Paul's going to bring, Mr. Hopkins.
That's what I would say, that's a policy, but if you rent one of the rooms at the school, they require you to pay for a custodian's wage for that entire time that you're there.
Yeah.
Because somebody's gotta pay for their wage.
Yeah. Thankfully, so far, we haven't had, raucous parties or anything in here. It's been, individuals just doing meetings, lawyers doing depositions, that kind of stuff.
Deposition type or some type of, not a gathering.
Yeah, so we're not having the ceiling and, problems on the floor or anything, but I just want some direction.
Mr. Gross, do you have anything?
Yes, based on the pre-reading of what you had suggested, I thought you had a very good feel for the pulse of it, of whether you wouldn't allow, whether it was a profit-making organization. It was not here, but in the email you had sent out. Whether it was a profit-type organization, if they were setting out, if it's a charitable-type organization, those all should have considerations to whether there's a charge or there's not a charge. And I thought you had a good feel for that in what you had sent out, at least what I had read, or I read your mind, one or the other. I'm not sure. And if that's the case, I'm a little
That
scared.
worries me a little.
It was what I read in your email, so.
So I will draft the policy and bring it back to council.
Great, thank you.
To be honest, by the time I get done drafting a policy and having it approved, the library might be open and this might be a new point.
That's good. But we'll have it, so.
There's still maybe people that want to use this, they don't need the whole library space, the library's already booked.
Hopefully we can continue to utilize that facility. Any other further discussion on this? Next item B.
Yes, the IFT request for display pack for the $2 million+ in real property improvements for a length of 12 years. This was in front of our IFT committee last week, Monday, this past Monday. The recommendation from the committee at that time was 12 years, which was calculated in part based on the policy that we are discussing, deliberative part of this, this body's deliberations. So I wanted to bring it to you so you're aware of it, and that's what the committee recommended. This body doesn't have to act on it today. I believe we have 60 days, which will fall directly on the next council date. So we will have an action item ready for you at the next council date.
Okay, thank you. There are representatives here from Display Pack. Would you like to address or speak to this? Give us an update of who you are. Come to the podium, please.
I'm Gavin Scott, and I'm the Director of Finance at Display Pack. I think most of you have been at our facility at this point, if not all of you. So I guess mostly if there's just any questions about our company, but mostly just also to say we're looking forward to a long and hopefully prosperous time in Cedar Springs as we hopefully continue to grow into that facility and kind of make it the next chapter in Display Pack's history. So.
If I could jump in and say one thing.
Go ahead.
So council went and visited Display Pack about a month ago now. I thought we had a great time.
Yes.
Some of my staff actually went and did a tour of the facility today, and they only had nice things to say about it as well, which they didn't invite me, by the way.
Good.
But that being said, I think it's a good company, and I think the recommendation is appropriate for next time.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Mostly just for our people who are viewing at home. About how many people do you employ?
We have about 200 employees. About 170 of those are actually employed by Display Pack, and 30 are temps. Obviously fluctuates, but that's about the general employee count.
So that's a pretty big footprint for our community.
And just as a note too, there are 24 residents of Cedar Springs that are employed there. So I think they're a great asset to our community, and we will most definitely next month, we have proposal 12 that we have 1 month, we present this now, and then next month it'll be voted on. So it gets out in the community, and it's not something we're trying to ram through.
Yeah, we've been really happy with the type of employees we've been able to attract from Cranston. We had a job there right after we got up here too, and big success. And so the more we can get our name out, the more resumes we can get, the better. Even if there's not an opening right now for a specific person, we'd love to get as many contacts as possible. Our intent is, we're 200 employees right now. That's based on about 1/3 usage of that facility. We're hoping to get to 600 employees, and maybe even more in that facility.
And going forward, people should apply directly to you. Okay. I'm saying that nice and loud for our YouTube viewers.
Okay. I
So they should apply directly to the folks at Display Pack, located at...
650 West 650 West Street.
Excellent.
Yes, and they're very employee-friendly operations, and could you give them an overview, a quick one on what your products are?
Yeah, so we have primarily two product lines. One is packaging, so you'll recognize our products from Meijer probably with cut fruit packaging, cookie tubs, salad trays.
Not the tomato.
Not the veggie trays, the cookie tubs you recognize? Yeah, I resemble that comment. And then currently we have one of our divisions down in Grand Rapids still that will be moving at the end of this year. It's an automotive interior business, the same type of manufacturing process, just a little bit different raw material and then product we use. It's used for the interior trim of vehicles, the decorative pieces and dashboards and door consoles. So that's the business.
And that process will happen when Wolverine Worldwide will vacate that other half of the building, and that'll open it up for them to move that process here. We had a tour there, and it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Just make me thank you for that. No problem.
Wait, somebody used the word footprint here a few minutes ago, and you're talking about using a lot of plastic. What's the percentage of your waste that goes in the landfill versus recycling?
All of it is pretty much recycled. We get a lot of money from our recycled plastics, so probably about 90% plus we grind up ourselves in our facility, sell back to our suppliers, they melt it down, making raw material for us to use in the product.
I was thinking the percent, like 3% was all that might go into landfill.
Right.
And so that's like a leading example for, not leaving behind no more of a footprint than you have to.
Yep. We pride ourselves in that. We used to do printing, and we were part of sustainable forestry initiatives and stuff like that. Sold that product line to another local company, Almost Graphics, who's the partner with down here around it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, item C, we did that in the workshop. We established a subcommittee to narrow down over 60 to 70 names for our new nature preserve. That'd be Mrs. Powell, Ms. Conley, and Mr. Gross.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to point out to people on YouTube and to the public that those names were presented to you as part of your packet.
Correct.
So if the public wanted to review the names or still contribute some of the names, they can send them to my office. But we did get several dozen names.
Yes. And I would ask them to narrow it down. So what's the council's consensus? 5 names, and then we'll select 10 at the next February meeting.
How many are we going to limit to having red flannel on the cover?
That's the board's discretion. The committee's discretion. Okay, any other discussion on that? Moving on to item D, Cedar Springs Industrial Facility Tax Abatement Guidelines discussion. And this reflects back on CS Manufacturing and the display tax. Go ahead, Mr. Womack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I previously did not have my computer. I now have a computer, but it's not, maybe just a little bit. It's shifting very slowly, so.
That dang technology.
Yeah, computers are here to help us, just like the government, right?
Right.
Okay, so.
Give us an overview.
Yeah. Thankfully, Mr. Gross has computer that appears to be working. So, 71, use of personal property in addition to real property. So if you look down at page 51 of the packet, you'll see that there is a number of investment amounts that are tied to years recommended for the IFT. So I just am barely able to see it. So there's under $250,000, between $250,000 and $750,000, $750,000, and sorry, this computer is acting very funny. So there's a delineation of certain dollar amounts that will get you X number of years, of an IFT recommended by the policy. My question to council that I'm looking for direction on is, even though you can only grant the IFT abatement on the real property, do we want to also include personal property investment? Now, that's a benefit to the industry coming in, the company coming in. They can tell us how much they're going to, invest in personnel property. But they're kind of double dipping in that way. There's no necessary reason we would have to do it other than to encourage them to bring in additional capital outlay into our community. So we could adopt a policy that we would count both, but in addition to allowing them to double dip on that, it does create additional work for staff, because this is not a number that will be presented to us as part of the traditional IFT packet. This would be information we would have to go out of our way to request. So I'm not necessarily in favor of it, but I want to present it as an option because it was discussed at the IFT committee. Would council like to address these one by one?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So just to clarify, that piece was not part of the IFT committee's recommendation?
I don't think the IFT took a stance as a recommendation.
Okay.
It was just a discussion item that came up, and I thought council would like to take a whack at it.
That's fine. I just was trying to clarify
Sure.
where their recommendation ended and where
Real property.
the discussion.
I think the discussion ended in, we recognize that the Corona guidelines, which is what this is based off of, were originally drafted when you could get both real and personal property. So that's why it was originally part of,
Okay.
but now you can't do personal property.
Right.
So we could still count it if we wanted to, but we don't have to. And I don't necessarily think it's appropriate, but I want council to address it.
Okay. I was just trying to be clear about what the recommendations were and where the line was. Because I was not part of the IFT committee.
The original application that comes in from the manufacturer includes real property and personal property.
It did previously. I'm not sure it will anymore because there was a law update that got rid of personal
These
property.
weren't updated, and now it comes down, basically, we would give them abatement on the real property, which would be brick and mortar of the building.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question because I'm getting lost in the jargon. When you say personal property, I'm assuming we're not discussing a house they might buy.
Machinery,
Machinery, a forklift,
Primarily.
tools.
Okay, office equipment.
Computers,
Yes.
and it's in the building, so,
When it comes to,
material items.
a business having to pay personal property tax versus real property tax, when we're talking about real property tax, we're talking about the actual property in the building.
The land and the
So the dirt and the brick.
Correct. And personal property tax is every tabletop, every computer.
Everything in the bricks.
Correct.
Okay.
Everything that's not sellable.
And we cannot tax personal property.
As a city.
The government, only the state.
Over 80,000.
Yeah.
If you're under 80,000, it's an exemption. That's
So-
where the city lost 144 grand a year.
Anyway, so would we then be responsible for figuring out the depreciation on the personal property? Because year one of a computer does not have the same value as year 10.
yeah, no, I wouldn't. Of course, this would be something the city would be doing gratis, as a favor to a company.
Sure.
What we're really looking, or what we could look at, I should say, is how much money are they bringing in personal property, as a benefit to their operations. Again, I'm not necessarily in favor of this. It was just something that came up during the IFT committee discussions.
I think she's just trying to understand it.
Sure.
Currently, we're only looking at real property.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Policy.
add
Go
to
ahead.
the discussion? I look at it from the perspective as a city of the bricks and mortar is something that stays here and that we want to attract people to, where the things like computers and desks and so on do not necessarily stay here. They go
With the company.
with the company. So I feel like that's less of what we should be trying to get people to buy.
And that's Mr. Womack's.
And that-
On the discount, like if what we're trying to say is we'd like you to come use our facility, we're gonna discount the amount that you have to pay in taxes on what lives here. It has to be here. Which is very different than the desk you might bring in here, that you would then take with you somewhere else.
When Wolverine vacates that building down there, they take all the personal property desks,
Sure.
but they leave the real property.
Right.
So I don't know that I need to be discounting that.
But as I understood it from the workshop, we aren't giving them anything other than additional years in their tax abatement. Did I understand that correctly?
Oh, yeah, the recommendation in the policy would be a correction.
Right. If this were enacted as it is presented here.
It's just a point system to get them to a number of years.
Yes. Can we not renew an IFT? Because
One-time deal.
it's one time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And only go through what we said, and then once it's done, they can reapply for one, unless they build a big addition on.
Oh, which is how CS Manufacturing is getting what they
Correct.
bought, what used to be bought. Okay.
If I could follow up on what Ms. Conley says, that's my primary reason why I would be against it.
Okay.
Real property stays, personal property goes.
Stays in the community.
But if you guys want to be extra super nice with sugar on top, you could do it.
Mr. Mayor, my perception of this whole process is that we're trying to encourage people to come, and we're trying to encourage new people to come. So if we could, Mr. Womack mentioned that I had looked up a couple other towns, and I believe it was Sterling Heights. That they give points in their system for businesses that are meeting LEED requirements. So, and they have different levels of LEED, like
Sure.
silver, gold, I don't know, there's a lower one, I think. So they get some extra points for that, because I think they're looking at what the level of technology may be in the building. And I'm thinking that if a company comes in and they're putting in machines that are very expensive, I think that, for example, at
$1 million.
Display Pack, one machine is $1 million, and they're buying one a year. If I understand it right, I got it. They are looking at putting a technology into our community that I think raises the level of our industry up considerably. So it may not be that we want to give the real property as much punch we don't want to give the personal property as much punch as the real property, but perhaps like Sterling Heights does, you meet this basic level of LEED, you get 1 point. You get the silver, you get 2 points.
But LEED is kind of conflating personal property, because LEED could be about
I
pick your walls
I
are.
understand that. I'm saying though, the concept is though, it's the amount of money that a company is putting into their machines very likely indicates a level of technology that is considerably higher.
Coming
So,
in.
But isn't
Coming in.
LEED, but isn't LEED about the building of the building?
LEED is about, yes, it is.
It's not about the
I'm not
machines,
trying to
it's about the
say,
building.
I'm not saying that the technology of the machines is the same as the LEED standard. I am saying, though, that we could adopt some kind of a policy that gives extra points, not as much as real property, but extra points for the level of technology that a company brings into the community.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think Sterling Heights had in mind. They want to raise that level of technology.
And I understand what you're saying. So when I review the Sterling Heights policy between now and the next month,
We'll watch all that.
It's an idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think that it is worth something to the community to have a higher level of technology.
I like the idea of the LEED within the construct of the building, like that we would give additional points for a LEED building. Like to me that seems, again, as a building that stays in the community, if it's more energy efficient, that seems like an asset to the community.
Yeah.
I mean,
so how about I work on that with various council members throughout the month?
I would suggest that if you have comments or concerns about this, or ideas and thoughts, submit them to Andrew Womack, and then we can all put this together over maybe a couple of months. And
Yep, this
come up
policy is
with-
not going to be ready, I don't think,
Yeah.
anytime soon, but I'd like to get moving there. So
Yeah,
Sure.
this is a process.
Did we give you some
that takes a
stuff?
while.
yeah, that was great. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Go ahead.
when we're looking at abatements and stuff, my personal opinion is, I can see the things both ways, is, you know, personal property tax versus
And that's
business.
where people get confused. The personal property, we cannot do anything with other than allow them to absorb that into the big number on the application. Anything will help. You know,
Yeah.
that's true.
And when we look at giving abatements or not giving abatements, is you have to look at, you know, we're losing tax money, but is it better for us to lose that tax money and have it, the overall picture be better for the entire community
Correct.
versus them not being here because they didn't get
Absolutely.
what would make them survive here?
That's the whole purpose of the abatement is, you know, we lose a little upfront, but what we gain is employees spending money here in town and living here in town and impacting our restaurants and all the
Well,
above.
and having jobs.
Yeah, no doubt.
And after 12 years, we get the full amount.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, did we get a figure for display pack as far as the taxable, on the tax on the real property? When we had the IFT, we hadn't got there yet. I didn't know if we.
I don't 100% understand your question. I mean, if we're talking
Well,
about
when
the tax
we-
bill, how much they're going to be above.
Well, what would their total tax be on the $2,162,000, whatever it is?
I think that was something we discussed at IFT, but I don't think we have that number.
We haven't got
here
there yet,
today.
okay.
No, we
I-
don't have them.
I think
It was
on
a
the-
small number.
Hmm?
It was a small number.
So the CS Manufacturing was what, $18,000? That was the yearly.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
You know, we would have to get those.
So it's
numbers.
probably just around twice that much, would be the yearly tax.
I honestly don't know, but it's a good question. I think we can look into it and discuss it further.
All right, that's great. You know, any concerns or comments about this process, get with Manager Womack, and over the next 3 or 4 months, we can iron out this process and hopefully move on.
I now regret bringing these because this is giving me lots of discussion, but it's good discussion.
Good stuff.
It's good discussion. So, D2, use of number of employees. So, my stinking computer's not working so great, but yeah. But on page 51, you'll see under number 3, number of employees 1 to 10, 11 to 25, etc. Then you go over to the right, 2 times NMW, 3 times NMW. That's a wage that is twice the national minimum wage or 3 times the national minimum wage. The IFT committee discussed moving those all over to the left and create a new category that's any number of jobs.
Correct.
So the 2 times would become any number of jobs, 3 times would become twice the national minimum wage, and we would award points based on that. And I think the committee's thought process is if some companies can come in and bring 75 jobs paying 1 times the national minimum wage, we should reward them for that with the, I guess, 12 years is what's listed here. So I want a discussion on whether this body thought that was an appropriate way to address the awarding of any employees.
In the past, all the IFTs were awarded on a number of jobs.
I don't think there was a minimum wage. I mean, having done this previously, I don't think there was a minimum wage
No, it didn't.
calculation at all. Like, it was just do they have X number of jobs?
Yep. So if anybody has any comments,
I personally, I would look at it as any job, because my guess is back when this was formed, it was to kind of get away from having to give IFTs to your fast food restaurant chains, and that's all they're going to be is minimum wage people. But with the way the economy has gotten here, the factories, when they're starting up, they can't start everybody up at $25 above minimum wage.
somebody your fast foods can't meet the minimum threshold of expense.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say most of them are actually paying more than minimum wage.
But I think that's a good policy, you know, any job should be accredited and appointed.
That's what I figured, any job.
You know, if anybody has any others, go ahead and submit them to the manager and.
It really limits what you get.
Yeah.
But going with that structure, with the 2 tiers, with 1 for any jobs and 1 with twice minimum wage jobs, that would be a higher point value for
Yes.
them?
Yes.
So that you don't get penalized if you bring in less jobs because they pay more.
Right.
Because otherwise you're incentivizing, like, lowering wages, if it's just straight number of jobs.
This fellow had a comment.
So the point system, do the points relate to the number of years or the amount of money? I don't,
Yeah, the points are interchangeable with years, so each point is 1 year.
So you accumulate 12 points and that gives you the full year in the system.
okay, you can't just come in and say, I built a $2 million facility and I'm employing 100 people. You should, I would think you would just automatically get that 12 years regardless of,
Well, under that scenario, a $2 million capital investment would be 4 years. And how many people did you say, 100 jobs?
100, regardless of wage.
If we shifted it down, regardless of wage, you'd get 12 years for the 75 plus. So now you're looking at 16 years, maximum is 12.
Right, right. I just didn't know how the points, what they meant more money or more years? I guess that's what I was
You
looking
can
at.
only max out to 12.
To 12.
Thank you.
Sure.
Moving on.
D3, adding 1 point to years in business. So the, again, I can't bring it up, but it's 6 to 10 years, and then I think 10 to 15 and 15 above, you get X number of years based on how long you've been in the community. There was discussion by the IFT committee about not punishing a brand new company to the area. So there was a recommendation, or at least a discussion, that we shift everybody to the right and add a new category, which is 1 point for a brand new business up to 5 years. I think that's appropriate.
That seems appropriate. Because you wouldn't want to subtract it, because you don't want to penalize people who have been here.
But it's also a free point.
Right.
All companies will,
Right, sure.
have 1 point.
We want to.
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
Okay, just one additional comment. I think it was in Romulus. They gave points for bringing a company in from out of state. I thought that was an interesting add-on. I'm not so sure that's significant for us, but that, for them, that was powerful. They gave, I think, in their system, a lot of points, 10 points or something, because they had a totally different system.
And they're close to the border.
Oh, I know, and you can't compare to, everybody's community towers, I know. But I'm just saying that was an interesting add-on.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to discuss this, is because there's lots of ways you can structure this.
Sure.
And I'm just looking for, based on your knowledge of the local history of the city, what you think would be appropriate. So, good discussion. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for all the hard work on this, and thank you to the IFT committee. Because having voted on this before, I felt like I was sort of throwing darts at a thing in the dark.
Yes,
And thank you, Mr. Clark, who's been helping me quite a lot with his work.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, he has led the charge on that.
So, 7E, the farmer's market. Like I said previously, I put a lot of work into this. And it's basically taking the farmer's market only, nothing else, and taking it away from the 15-day notice requirement, the $200 charge to get in front of the planning commission, and bring it to the administrative level where the city manager or my designee or my office's designee to allow more of a on-the-fly promulgation of rules that can be more adaptive than the kind of bureaucratic, structural, time that it takes for the planning commission to act on something. So I guess you could look at it as me grabbing more power, but of course that's not my intention. My intention is to make it easier to do. And of course, as you guys may know, Mr. Ringler of the brewery approached planning commission and indicated that he would like to start a farmer's market, which is when I started getting research on this and seeing how hard it actually is to do in the city. And I don't know why that's the way it is, but I'd like to change it. So I did have some good suggestions sent to me by both planning commission members and council members. I did change the policy to address those concerns. And I don't think I'm ready at this point to implement or ask you to implement But I wanted more discussion on it if anybody saw anything they'd like to change.
Rose has a question?
I don't know if you looked at any of Rockford's ordinances in regards to farmer's market, but I think they're like the best in Michigan or something. Maybe they've got something. I like how you did it. I think it's a good start, and maybe they've got some terrific ideas that we could also incorporate.
Sure. I should state there's two different levels of what's going on here.
Okay.
There's the level of me changing the ordinances to permit it to happen, and then we'll get into the actual rules that can be changed at the administrative level. So it's my intention that after we change the ordinances to permit it, I would then sit down with all the various, bodies and individuals and write out the actual rules. That way, those rules can be changed on the fly to reflect what's happening on the ground. If we say you have to have 10 parking spots and 400 people show up, we can then change that,
Need more
instead of
parking.
having to wait for the planning commission to act. So I actually did, when writing this, look at 7 or 8 different farmers markets, just get a feeling for what the rules were, what the common themes were, and I will draft that after we do the ordinances, but we got to do this first.
So I would say draft it on a rough draft and then submit it, and we can all.
This is
That's
the rough
the
draft.
And I think that it looks excellent to me. I don't have much to improve upon with it.
One of the ordinances, it can be amended and changed to work better.
Yeah. The planning commission would have to see this because of the zoning.
Sure.
So there might be a notice requirement on that. So we weren't prepared to do it this month anyway. So what we might do then is approach the planning commission with the next month and then bring it back to you guys for enactment. Although since it will be an ordinance, there's notice requirements for that as well.
Thank you. Great.
But I'd like to do it before the summer. Mr. Gross.
Under 24-9-3, the market manager, I noticed that in most of the rest of your documentation, you indicated the manager would be, let's see, supervision and control of the city manager, who shall also serve as the market manager.
Correct.
In most all of the other instances you placed in, the city manager or designated,
Or designate, yeah.
and this one you just didn't have to put it in.
No,
So
it follows after there, I think.
So,
The market manager or their designee shall be responsible for the
Yeah.
enforcement.
24-9.
Yeah.
Nope, I didn't go far enough on it, so.
Sure, yeah, and the intent behind that for rest of council is I don't intend the office of the city manager to actually take an active role in this, unless the city is the one putting on this farmers market. Right now, Mr. Ringler is intending to do it, and I'll be happy to let him do that as long as he meets the minimum requirements that we're going to set.
Correct.
Have to have X number of parking spots, have to have, X number of bathrooms available. After that, I'll let him be the designee of the market manager.
Sets a guideline for what is required for him or any other business that wishes to put on a farmer's market. So it's a good step forward. It clears up a lot of gray area.
Yeah, I certainly don't need the extra work.
No. So, any other discussions on this farmer's market? Hearing none.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
The library.
Move on. Yep, my apologies, I didn't write that down.
Item F.
The library.
Street agreement between the library.
So, based on our policy to see things twice, and this was just handed to me yesterday at about 4 o'clock, I think it's appropriate to either table it or just discuss it and then perhaps add as an action item. I'd like to discuss it more. I'd like to hear from you guys right now, any thoughts you might have on it.
I can go first if you want.
Go ahead.
I was on the library board for 6 years. It's quite a while. And I would like Solon Township to give me some justification for why they don't pay the same millage we do. I guess that's the bottom line. I would like them, because they use, it's about 2/3 of the people that come to the library. Am I correct in the numbers?
I don't have the exact numbers, but they do have a population of 6,000. We have a population of 35,000.
It's more than half, right? Well, no, but I'm looking at Donna. I mean, I've seen those numbers, not recently, but unless it's dramatically changed, it's far more than half. But yet, we're paying 0.8 and they're paying 0.4. That just doesn't seem right to me. And I guess I would like a justification for why that is.
And I should say, this is 0.4, which is new. It used to be 0.3.
0.3, I understand that, but even 0.4, I understand. I would like, and I'm not saying I absolutely won't vote for a contract for that, but I'm probably not going to vote for a 3-year contract for that. And I need someone from Solon to explain to me why this is equitable. That's just my, like, I need to hear that conversation, because in my entire time in library board, in my entire time in council, I've never gotten an explanation for that. Why is that okay?
Okay, I'll go down the line. Mrs. Nixon, do you have any comments?
I do. I think that in light of our new construction, and the fact that they have twice the population paying half the amount, I might be willing to do the 4/10 mill equivalent for a year, maybe 2, but I'm not going to do a 3-year contract renewing it in perpetuity for something that is not equitable, and especially when they have a brand new facility paid for largely by the citizens of the city.
Ms. Spaulding?
I think we should approach the board out there as our board should approach their board and voice our concerns and go from there.
Ms. Brown?
Well, I think I'd rather see a 1-year contract to start with, but, do we know on their millage, did they go before the actual citizens that are paying taxes that are gonna, increase the mill? Do they
No.
gotta go before?
It goes out of their general fund.
They don't have a dedicated millage, it's strictly out of their general fund, so anything they pay us basically comes out of their street road improvement for any project they have. That's part of the question, to answer that question.
So I would like them, to see a 1-year contract, that way they can decipher after a year whether they can give us more versus just saying 3. I don't know if we can force them to pay us any more.
Okay,
We can't.
we can.
We can tell them to figure out their own library, which would not be the preferred route, but it is an option.
We have some more information on that. We can bring up to the question. Mr. Gross, do you have a comment?
I can see it both ways, okay? I also would like to go with a 1 year at 4%, if that's the best we can do for this time being. I wouldn't want to go any longer than that. I can also see, and if I'm putting myself in their position, why they wouldn't want to be on a 50-50, simply because the building is in the city of Cedar Springs. And therefore, the perception would be that the most of the benefit will be to the city of Cedar Springs and not necessarily to Solon Township. I doubt very much in whether you're going to go 50-50 with them. I would see what they would possibly go to. But I think if we were to hold out too long, we may lose that 4. And I hate to see us lose even that.
Mr. Clark?
I have a little inside scoop. I think my wife could probably do better than I, but I'll throw it out here and then she can clean up after me. Historically, when Solon was brought into this, we needed them a lot, whatever we could get. I don't remember what the starting millage equivalent was. I don't know when it turned to 3.
It wasn't actually millage, am I correct?
It's millage equivalent
Yeah.
that they take out. They do base it on their valuations,
Okay.
but it comes out of their general fund. But we needed them, we still do, a lot. So when we talk about wanting to get them up to where we are, I think we need to tread lightly, because otherwise they will find another way to meet their requirement. We will lose their, help me Donna, 20,000?
Well, like you were saying, well, at 3 cents of a mill is 47,000.
We will lose $47,000 that we get now.
Yeah.
And it's gonna go up. So, if we don't have that, we find ourselves in a rather desperate situation as far as making the library function at a level that would be, well, if we think it functions in a low now compared to KDL, it'll be lower. So,
Can I ask a question?
so historically, we have to realize they needed us, we needed them. I think we needed them more. So to have them come up to an equivalent of 4 mills right now is a good step. We should look at it positively, not look at it like, boy, they're not paying enough. I think that they will come along. The other point is, and it's a good point, Pam, what percentage of their population actually uses our library? And Donna's got to help me here. But I believe that less than 50% of the families in Solon take advantage of our library. They go to Sparta. They do go to Sparta some, but not too many. Not at all. But they go to Sand Lake,
And they also,
Nelson Township.
Solon also subsidizes Grant Library, correct?
Oh, just a tiny bit though.
But it's their penal fund.
0.3%.
We're just cut out into that other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact they do
Yes, they do.
subsidize another library grant with their penal fund.
Yeah.
Feel
I mean, I would love to see them come up to where we are, but until we can actually get some facts and figures that show where their population uses our library, so we have a little lever that we can say, look, you guys are using this like this. You know, it's nice that we've got a new library, and of course, a lot of the money that is put into that library comes out of Solon Township families. So I think that's something you want to consider as well. Another question I had was, how long was this current contract in place? Does anybody know? Donna, do you know? So this has been in place for a while. So, and we have the clause in there that says either party can
6 months ago.
back out of the arrangement with a 6-month notice. So to go with a 3-year contract to me is not a big deal. Especially if it makes the Solon Township folks feel more comfortable. Because in 6 months, if we decide, yeah, we don't like it, and we talk to them, we can change it.
Can I ask a question?
Please, go ahead.
So, you say they have alternatives. What are those alternatives?
KDL, which they don't want to do.
At which point they have to pay .8?
They gotta go right up to it.
They gotta go all the way up.
So they don't want to do that. But Donna, you're gonna have to help me here too. Don't they have the ability as a municipality to offer their people to pay for their, no?
I suppose that could be a possibility.
When I was on the board, it was $135 a person if you didn't have a library.
It's not that much, at least when I read it down, but,
You need to get a
it's-
non-resident card.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's around $50.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not sure exactly what it is.
And the .8 mil would be like,
They're 1.28 million now.
okay, but 1.28 mils on a $100,000 house is, someone help me,
$120, yes.
which is not $50 a person unless you are 2 people in your house.
Well, you need one card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody in my house has their own car.
Yes. If I could just add one more thing and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
And that is, this is all great discussion, and it's very enlightening, and I appreciate it. I should point out that the CBDT has been extremely generous in offering, I think, 3 weeks of operating expenses to keep moving on, regardless of what the city and the township figure out. So this is kind of a little in the abstract, 'cause I